Well, one of those days where if you're a Democrat, the news just keeps getting bad for you. I'm sorry. I mean, it's nice to have something to laugh about. Y'all, everyone's focused on Joe Manchin. It turns out Joe Manchin is not the only Democratic senator who wants the filibuster preserved. It should be obvious to everyone in America at this point that the American political press, on both sides, this is a bipartisan issue. The American political press, it is more so a Democratic issue, though, because the American political press is dominated by Democrats. They're more interested in telling you narratives than telling you truth. And they leave out inconvenient facts. So, for example, the narrative is that the white guy, Joe Manchin from West Virginia, that redneck state, he's blocking the filibuster. And black people in this country are being punished because of Joe Manchin. Raphael Warnock. You know, Raphael Warnock. People used to call him Ralph Warnock, and now he's Raphael Warnock. I mean, that's his actual name, but people used to call him Ralph Warnock. I know because I've been on the radio in Georgia for years, and people would refer to him as Ralph Warnock, and now he's Raphael, and he's out there talking. Listen to the rhetoric from Raphael Warnock talking about our democracy.
Sisters and brothers, we are in a 911 emergency when it comes to our democracy. And it's so important that we not miss this moment, that we misapprehend the gravity and the significance of what we will do in this moment. I've only been in the Senate a little while. And I've already been there long enough to realize that it's easy for folk who become a part of this institution to become cynical, to say that we go and we debate various issues, and there is a practical side. We debate certain things, we win some, we lose some, we come back to the next Congress. But let me be very clear, this is not just some ordinary moment. What they are trying to do in Georgia and all across this country is to squeeze the voices of the people out of their democracy such that they can have minority rule, and we will not allow that to happen.
There's a problem. There's a problem for him, his focus on minority rule from Republicans. And by the way, this is lefty QAnon. The idea that these election laws are actually going to do seriously draconian things to keep people from voting. It's simply not true. For all the people complaining about Republicans saying the election was stolen, this is the Democratic version of that. It's going all the way back to George Bush when he was elected president in 2000. But there is a problem, and it's going to be little noticed by people. From the synagogue to the Senate, the busiest Democratic senator you've probably never heard of. This is a profile of Jackie Rosen, Nevada Democrat. Larry Rosen and Doug Emhoff bonded because of their powerful wives. As two of the only men in the book club for spouses, when their other halves served as senators, they became good friends. It just so happens their wives, Senator Jackie Rosen of Nevada and then Senator Kamala Harris of California, who is now vice president, enjoyed spending time and working with each other too. Harris and Emhoff are now in the White House, but that doesn't mean that Rosen is a shoo-in when it comes to the Biden administration's agenda. Hamstrung by a 50-50 Senate and a roiling fight over whether to roll back the filibuster, forcing most Senate legislation to clear a 60-vote bar. Harris has been tasked with lobbying senators to advance sweeping voting rights legislation that has become a lightning rod for the filibuster battle. But despite their personal ties that have evolved beyond the Senate spouses book club, Rosen is sticking with her belief in bipartisanship, which seems increasingly unpopular and old-fashioned in hyper-partisan Washington. Shortly after the story was published, Rosen told the Post she would support eliminating the filibuster in the case of protecting democracy after previously saying she supported reforming the filibuster. I will never stop trying to find common ground across the aisle in order to deliver for hardworking Nevadans and Americans, but I'm not going to let obstructionists stand in the way of protecting our fundamental rights as Americans. Right now, our democracy is under attack, and we must do everything we can to protect voting rights. If eliminating the filibuster is what it takes to get it done, we must preserve democracy. But Rosen's not grabbing the same splashy headlines in the filibuster fight as Joe Manchin is. Manchin, unlike Rosen, has refused to sign the sweeping voting rights bill. Now, we can stop here because let me tell you what's going on here. Jackie Rosen, Democratic senator from Nevada, is opposed to gutting the filibuster. You will notice she says now that she's in favor of gutting the filibuster to protect the For the People Act. But what actually happened? This profile was not done in a vacuum. It came out this morning at 11:33 a.m. Jackie Rosen, the senator from Nevada, I guess gets some sort of profile in Courage because she only came out in favor of gutting the filibuster after Joe Manchin came out and said what? He's not even in favor of the For the People Act. In other words, Jackie Rosen's not in favor of gutting the filibuster at all. She's not in favor of getting rid of the filibuster. She can only say so now when she knows there's no chance at all of the For the People Act passing. This is not a profile in courage, it's a profile in cowardice. And the Washington Post is trying to fluff her up into some sort of bridge builder across the aisle when she's a coward. She waited until she was assured the filibuster won't die and that the For the People Act cannot pass before she came out and said, oh, wait. I'm in favor of getting rid of the filibuster. That she told the Washington Post as they prepared the profile that she supported keeping the filibuster. Only after Joe Manchin made clear the For the People Act will never pass did she come out and say, actually, I'm in favor of scrapping the filibuster for that law. The one that we know now won't pass. This is a profile in cowardice. What's so amazing is that the Washington Post is fluffing it up as some sort of profile in courage. In courage. And see, this is where the narrative part of this comes in. This is where you got to understand about this narrative stuff. That the Washington Post knows, and the New York Times knows, and every talking head on CNN and MSNBC knows the filibuster isn't going anywhere. They know it. They actually do know this. It is a statement of fact and certainty that the filibuster is safe for now. And if the Democrats gain seats in the Senate next year, the filibuster is also safe because the Republicans are going to take back the House. The only scenario in which the filibuster is truly in danger next year is if the House stays Democrat and the Senate gains Democrats. It is highly unlikely the House stays Democrat, though. So, I mean, the fact of the matter is the filibuster is not going anywhere. And this woman, Jackie Rosen, is willing to go on record and say she wants to preserve the filibuster until it's safe for her to say she's against it for the Voting Rights Act after Joe Manchin ensures it's dead. No Republican supports the For the People Act. None. Not even Lisa Murkowski. So she's a profile in courage. And the media knows all of this. The media has long known all of this. But how many of you have read detailed stories about these other Democrats who don't want to give up the filibuster? Maggie Hassan from New Hampshire, she doesn't want to get rid of the filibuster. Angus King from Maryland doesn't want to get rid of the filibuster. Dianne Feinstein from California doesn't want to get rid of the filibuster. How many of you have heard stories of these people? Or they come out and say they want to get rid of the filibuster for the People Act. Like Raphael Warnock in Georgia wants to get rid of the filibuster and claims only for voting issues. That's it. We need an exception for voting issues. That's what he says for now. And Raphael Warnock can go out and march around Georgia and the nation and do the national press tour and say, we got to have this voting rights bill, but pay no attention to the fact he's focused on the For the People Act. He's not focused on the John Lewis voting rights bill. Now, the John Lewis voting rights bill, that's dead too. Ha ha ha! They're dead. It's dead, Jim. Mitch McConnell has come out. Lisa Murkowski, a Republican senator from Alaska, supports the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. But Mitch McConnell has come out and said there's no way the Republicans are going to pass it, which means the Democrats can't break the filibuster even for that one. They don't have the votes. They do not have the votes to do it. They don't have the votes as well to pass infrastructure. Joe Manchin has said he's not going to pass it without bipartisan support. The Republicans have negotiated with Shelley Moore Caputo from West Virginia. She and the president have now stopped their negotiations, and now they've empowered some gang of 10, I think it is. There aren't enough Republicans in the gang to overcome a filibuster. So they've got to have real bipartisanship here. But they don't have real bipartisanship on this issue. They don't. So they can't pass anything unless they actually get Republicans on board. And if you do get the Republicans on board, there's a problem. Chuck Schumer can't do anything hyper bipartisan. Now, I know that this is where the media narrative comes in, where you're not being told the truth. I'll give you the truth, and some of you get mad at me for giving you the truth, but I'll give you the truth here. Chuck Schumer cannot let a bipartisan deal happen on infrastructure. It's not the Republicans, it's the Democrats. You've got a gang of 10 senators now meeting, Republicans and Democrats, 5 and 5, trying to get a bipartisan, comprehensive infrastructure plan passed. Chuck Schumer can't let it happen. If he lets it happen, it's guaranteed to leave off key progressive plans. They've lost the For the People Act. They've lost the Pay Equity Act. It died last night. He can't afford to sell out progressives on infrastructure when they've decided health care is infrastructure, birthing person leave is infrastructure. Everything they want is infrastructure. They've been selling progressive activists the idea that anything they want is infrastructure, and progressive activists have believed it all, and all of that stuff is on the cutting room floor if there's a bipartisan deal, because Republicans aren't going to agree to those things. And so Schumer knows, the Democrats are going to be buried alive by their own base if they don't go along with this stuff. Schumer knows this is true. He's blaming Caputo and the Republicans for the death of this bipartisan infrastructure deal. But Schumer is scared to death that these 5 moderate Democrats and 5 moderate Republicans are going to cut an infrastructure deal that's going to leave progressive agenda items off. And that's going to alienate him with the base. Schumer, for all of Schumer's talk, he's not as effective a Senate Majority Leader as Mitch McConnell is. In fact, Schumer is forcing the Democrats to take votes. McConnell would never force someone like Susan Collins or Lisa Murkowski to take. Schumer is going to force a vote on the For the People Act. If these moderate Democrats who are up for re-election in 2022 vote for it, you're going to see Republican outside groups attack them for wanting to fund Marjorie Taylor Greene, because that's one of the key components of the law, that the federal government will fund these Republicans' races. All these Republicans who voted to deny the election, the Democrats will be the ones funding the races. Do you really think that that's going to go over well? No, but Schumer's going to make them vote for it, because he's not as smart of the strategist as the media would have you believe. Again, this is all about the media narrative. They told you Nancy Pelosi was the most brilliant strategist on the planet, and it nearly cost them the House of Representatives. But the Democrats and the media live in the same bubble and tell you this stuff, and you believe it. They want you to believe it. Hopefully you don't believe it, but they themselves believe it, and it's to their detriment. It is the Republican advantage time and time again that the Democrats always believe the press.
You can follow Erick around social media
Hello there, it is Erick Erickson here. I want to play for you some audio that came out of the Colonial Pipeline testimony in Congress. This is the CEO of Colonial Pipeline, Joseph Blunt. Listen to this.
I mean, the pipeline is 70 years old, right, roughly. There was a time, I assume, you correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a time, I assume, where you operated the pipeline without today's computer systems. What I'm driving towards here is, do you have the capability to manually operate the pipeline in the future, in the event of an IT attack like this one? And if you don't have that capability, should you, do you think, going forward?
Senator, that's a great question. We actually did operate small portions of the pipeline manually in order to alleviate some of the fuel shortage. And the discussion took place with the operations team about the ability to do that system-wide. And the response to that was it would be quicker to get back up on our feet by correcting the corruption of the critical IT systems that we needed in order to get the pipeline system up than to operate it manually. But I think on a go-forward basis, there's no question that we will look at that capability. And it's a really interesting question because if you look at the aging workforce now, a lot of those people that did operate Colonial Pipeline and other infrastructure in America historically manually, they're retiring or they're gone. Fortunately, we still have that last bit of that generation, which allowed us to do what we did during this particular event. It's a great question.
You know, this is something that we're going to have to deal with as a country. So I mentioned I was in a fender bender a couple of weeks ago. My car has all the bells and whistles on it, and when I get close to another vehicle, a little sensor goes off and the seat vibrates. And the reason it was my fault. I ran into a guy from behind. Thankfully, we were fine. It was just our cars, but the sensor didn't go off. And it was because of the angle that we were turning at. I was reading a story last year about the number of collisions have gone up with people backing out of spots because people are getting so dependent on their rear view cameras now. People have lost the skill of looking behind them, or cars can now be made with more blind spots because people are looking at the rear view camera. They don't have to look in the back now. And when that camera fails, when there's dirt on it, you can't see it, you're more likely to cause an accident. We're doing this with manual systems. We've got our pipelines, our power grid, our hospitals, our infrastructure in our Fortune 500 companies. They're all so heavily automated now. If there's a hack, you don't have people with manual operation skills left because we automated everything for efficiencies. We got those efficiencies, and now those efficiencies have made us even more vulnerable to hacks and hacking attacks. Colonial Pipeline had enough manpower left who remembered how to operate the pipeline manually. They could get it back online. But those people are retired, or dead.
30.
What about the power grid in this country? Heavily automated now and ripe for abuse and hacking. And we are behind the eight ball on this stuff as a nation. I was talking to an expert earlier, off radio, who was saying we've got several years of aggressive focus on this to be able to get where we need to be.
10.
We've fallen behind. We got to pick it back up. Hi there. How are you? The phone number, 877-97-ERIC, 877-973-7425. I got to play for you a clip. I normally, when I play clips, it is of commentators commentating that I want to riff on. I rarely play the anchor's commentary, the news program commentary. But I got to play you this. This is from CBS this morning to begin the discussion of what we must discuss. This.
A bombshell report by ProPublica reveals just how little the wealthiest Americans have been paying in taxes. ProPublica obtained more than 15 years of never-before-seen IRS information about the 25 richest Americans and found that sometimes they paid little or no federal income taxes. That includes Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, and Michael Bloomberg. Also, Jeff Bezos, who is now the richest person in America. He paid zilch federal income tax in 2007 and then again in 2011. We reached out to all of them, but have not heard back. Buffett and Bloomberg did respond to ProPublica, saying that they support an increase in taxes on the wealthy and that they donate much of their wealth to charity. Now, we should make clear that none of the things that these men did is illegal, which is actually part of the scandal here. And the IRS says it is now investigating the source of the leaked documents. Remains to be seen if Congress will take a look.
Okay. How is it part of the scandal that these very wealthy men may not have paid any taxes? If you're a bitter, jealous person, maybe it's a scandal. But what the documents from ProPublica show is that the tax code works as the tax code is written. A lot of people depend on capital gains for their wealth. Warren Buffett always makes the case that he pays less in taxes some years than his assistant, and that we need a higher income tax. But Warren Buffett's playing a shell game here. Warren Buffett doesn't want a life insurance proceeds tax because Warren Buffett makes a lot of money off of life insurance proceeds. Warren Buffett wants income taxes taxed higher, but Warren Buffett still wouldn't pay. If I buy a share of stock that's $10 and it goes up to $100 and I sell it within a year, I've made $90 in profit and I will pay regular income tax on that. But if it goes up to $100 2 years later, I don't pay regular income tax on it. I pay capital gains tax. If I make an investment and I hold that investment for more than 365 days and then I sell, I pay 20%, that's the capital gains rate, instead of my income tax rate, which could be 20%, 30%, 39%, 35%, whatever the highest rate is. But if I hold it for more than a year, I only pay the capital gains rate of 20%. So Warren Buffett sells, let's say he sells $10 million worth of stock. Warren Buffett pays the capital gains rate, the 20% rate on that. He doesn't pay the high income tax rate on that. And let's say Warren Buffett, he sells $10 million, but he's only living on $1 million a year. So, well, for the next 10 years, if he doesn't make any income, he doesn't sell any more stock. He lives on $1 million a year for 10 years. Warren Buffett pays zero taxes over that 10-year period because he's already paid the taxes on that $10 million. That's the way the system works. It works for you that way. It works for me that way. We just don't make as much money as Warren Buffett. Now, the Biden administration has proposed that people who make a couple $1 million a year, that they should pay the higher income tax rate on their capital gains. But okay, let's do that. Let's say Warren Buffett sells $10 million of stock and he lives off that $10 million a year. And Warren Buffett now pays a 40% income tax rate instead of a 20% capital gains rate. Well, Warren Buffett still could live off that money for the next number of years and not pay income taxes because he's already paid in the first year. He doesn't pay income taxes on money. If you put money in your bank account, do you pay money at the end of the year? Does the IRS say how much money is in your bank account? Now, pay his taxes on that? No, that's not the way it works. It's how much money did you earn this year? If Warren Buffett makes $10 million this year and he lives off that for the next 10 years, he earned it this year. He didn't earn it next year or the following years. That's the way the system's supposed to work. You want it to work that way. You may not think you do, but you want it to work that way. The scandal here is not that the tax system works the way Congress wrote it. That's what they're showing. The scandal here is that ProPublica, a left-wing journalism nonprofit, and it is left-wing. It makes no secret about being of the left, ProPublica, got someone to give them the tax returns of the richest people in America. My suspicion is that it didn't come from the IRS, but came from congressional Democrats, because they sure did seize on this story very quickly. But maybe it was someone from the IRS. Grover Norquist tweeted this out. Some people inside the IRS broke the law and stole private tax returns and gave them to a left-wing group to selectively use for political goals. And now Biden and the Democrats want to reward this effort with $80 billion in larger budgets and 87,000 more IRS agents. Let's say the leak came from the IRS. Why should we give the IRS more manpower to further invade our privacy? Why should we? I don't think we should. In fact, if anything, I think we need to have the IRS have less power. I'm concerned with the IRS having this much information. By the way, the Biden administration wants them to have even more power. The Biden administration wants them to be able to get access to your income tax filings, your retirement returns, your gun records, and on it goes. The Biden administration wants the IRS to be even more invasive into your life. We've got a problem here, and this is a problem, by the way, that transcends the government. It's really Gen Z. So, millennials are turning 40. Everybody blasts the self-entitled millennials. The worst thing the baby boomers ever did to us is give us the millennial generation. But the millennials are now not the dominant whiners on American soil or around the world. It's the Gen Z. A lot of the Gen Z kids, the older Gen Z kids, really, not the younger ones, are as big a whiners as some of the millennials. Tim Cook is the CEO of Apple. Tim Cook sent out a memo to Apple employees saying it's time to come back to the office. And 80 Gen Z and young millennial employees of Apple say, we don't want to come back to the office. We don't feel safe. We want to stay home. Apple's response is, you work for us, we don't work for you. Come home, come to the office or get a new job. And they're not happy about it. How dare daddy make them come to the office? A lot of companies are having this problem. You've got, it's like, remember, so Basecamp, I told you about Basecamp. Basecamp is the tech company. It's headquartered in Chicago, highly respected in Silicon Valley. It's headquartered in Chicago, and they put out a memo and said, hey, no politics at work. Anyone of any politics gets to work here. We're not going to do this. We're not going to have politics discussions at work. Half the company quit. And they tried to double down, but then they came back to, we're sorry, we have to listen some more. You're letting your employees hold you hostage. I guarantee you, whether it was a congressional leak or an IRS leak, what happened is it is a young employee, not an old employee, and they are progressive, not conservative. And they leaked this because they believed it was a scandal. They leaked this because they wanted to highlight something that they think is an injustice. And they themselves decided it is for the greater good that they do this. And they feel justified. And what is the media reaction? The media reaction is not, oh my gosh, people are leaking at the IRS. This is bad. The media reaction is, we should use this to force a change to the system. Again, it's the narrative, not the facts. The American media has seized upon this story. CBS News seized upon this story. to say, look how unjust it is that the richest men in America don't pay taxes. How terrible is that? No, they paid taxes in years they made money. You know, believe it or not, and this is part of this is the gross ignorance of understanding of the system. Believe it or not, in the United States of America, if you spend a lot of your money to build up your business, you get to write that money off. I have grown this radio show, and I did have a morning show. In the morning show, I didn't make money. I get a paycheck for this show. My morning show, 9 to noon, when I had it, I didn't. And I was spending all the money I made, pouring that money back in to grow the show. And I was able to write it off because I was growing a business, and that business employed people, and those people paid income taxes. It's the way small businessmen work. I know it's hard for you to understand this if you're a progressive. But contrary to what you're taught in school, the business owner gets paid last if they want to stay in business. I know people who own restaurants, and they are paying their employees more now than they've ever had to pay before. They're giving them benefits, and they're still having trouble finding people to come to work. But they believe in their business. They got a good business. They've got a great restaurant, and they're struggling. They get paid last. I know one guy, he runs a barbecue restaurant down I-20 headed towards Augusta from Atlanta. He had to cancel his family vacation because he doesn't have enough employees to work and sustain it when his family goes on vacation. So he and his wife and kids are running the barbecue shop because they're out of employees right now, and they cannot afford to shut down for a week to take family vacation. They will take it later because their business comes first. It's their livelihood. They are defined by their business. Listen, I'm a dad and I'm a husband. I love my wife and I love my kids. But I know I'm kind of defined by being a radio show host. It's what I want to do for the rest of my life. I've been kind of frustrated, in moving into the noon to 3 slot, and there are a ton of people out there who have jumped into the noon to 3 slot as well, and I think I'm actually really good at it. And they work for bigger companies. They got out first. They get their agencies, but a lot of these people, they don't want to do radio for the rest of their lives. I want to be behind a microphone for the rest of my life. And it to some degree, my work defines me. A lot of men, their work defines them. And I will, like a teacher teaching in a classroom who spends her money on supplies for her classroom, money she's never going to get back, she may write it off. I will spend my money to make my radio product better. I don't need a corporation behind me to make this product better because this product defines who I am. I'm deeply proud of the work I put in. I'm deeply proud of the growth of stations. You, when you grow your business, you're deeply proud of your business. And you get paid last because you want every penny you make to go to your business. And the American tax code is designed to support your entrepreneurial spirit. The scandal should not be that Jeff Bezos, working out of his garage, created one of the most prosperous companies on planet Earth and became the richest man. The scandal should be that people want to punish him now that he's the richest man for doing what? Making sure you can get your box of condoms in 24 hours and not have your mom find out that you went to the pharmacy. Or at least Amazon Prime used to do that. Making sure your toilet paper gets to you. Making sure your Legos get to you. Why is Jeff Bezos the bad guy? Because suddenly he's making a lot of money. There are reasons to not like Amazon. Amazon does predatory practices now. Amazon should be looked at. Google should be looked at. But they're not bad because they got rich. In America, you should be able to get rich. I want to be rich. I want to have a successful radio program where I can go buy land and build this big ass house I've had in my head since before I was married. Since I was in middle school, I started building this house in my head. I want the money to build it one day. And it's an expensive, very nice house with lots of rooms. And I want NetJets. I'm tired of getting yelled at when I walk through the Atlanta airport and I'm peeing and someone recognizes me and takes issue with something I said on the radio, which, believe it or not, happens. I want to be able to fly in a private jet and go. I want to be able to, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, say, hey, I want to take my buddies to Vegas for the weekend. And not have to worry about getting a Delta ticket, just summon NetJets, the private jets. I'm not there yet. One day, it's aspirational. I hope to be there. But I hope when I get there, when I get to that point, I will still live in a country that rewards the entrepreneurial spirit in this country. But we've gotten to a point now where the left thinks this is bad. The scandal should not be, unfortunately, in the way the media covers it. The scandal is that these men didn't pay taxes for a time. Good. They were in years where they didn't make a lot of money. They had a lot of money in their bank account, and they didn't make more. They used that money and poured it back in to grow their business even more. Good for them. The scandal is that someone at the IRS broke the law and leaked the tax returns to try to shape public policy in a way that person wanted. That's the real scandal here. And the fact the media doesn't think that's the scandal is a pretty damning indictment on the way we get our news. We should all be thankful we live in a system that rewards people for building great things.
You can follow Erick around social media at EW Erickson on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And check him out at EWErickson.com.
I did not realize that during the commercial break, Philip, who is not just, he gives great advice on cigars and fishing, but also occasionally reminds me of other things. That this whole thing with the media and the ProPublica story is that the scandal is these rich guys don't pay taxes as opposed to someone at the IRS leaked people's private tax returns. It's like when Kevin Spacey was outed for sexually harassing and sexually assaulting people. And he came out and said, I'm gay. And the media headline was not that he was sexually assaulting people, but hey, did you know Kevin Spacey's gay? Breaking news. It's so easy to play them in certain ways. They become so predictable with what they focus on. And it's like Doug the dog from the movie Up. A squirrel! And suddenly distracted. It becomes so easy to distract them. If you play the right angle, and sometimes you get to play the right angle. It's one reason why, I wasn't a fan of all President Trump's mean tweets, but one of the genius things President Trump was able to do until COVID hit was keep the media moving on. You never, ever, ever were able to get the president or the media to fixate on a story because the president's tweets, the moment Donald Trump tweeted something, off they went in that direction. And he could sabotage his own well-received States of the Union address, but he could also sabotage a prevailing media narrative by tweeting about something else, and suddenly they moved on. Until COVID happened, I can't recall a news cycle in this country during the age of Donald Trump that lasted more than 3 or 4 days. Even the impeachment stuff would go off on wild tangents for a while and then come back to it. And then COVID hit, and it's like the media latched onto COVID and wouldn't let go and ran negative story after negative story after negative story to sabotage Donald Trump's reelection chances. It is very hard for them to fixate on a story. But when they do, like with this ProPublica thing, I guarantee they're going to take the lefty take on it. They're going to spin it for the left. But we got a real problem in this country when the IRS wants more power and more control and more oversight and more data from you, and they're not protecting it. Maybe we need to hand it over to Apple, which is increasingly making privacy their focus. And good for them, by the way. I'm an Apple guy, but they've done a lot of things lately I don't like, including getting in bed with China. But Apple, in their newest software packages, are fixated now on making your privacy secure. I'm sure at some point someone's going to label them the phone of terrorists, but I'm glad they're focused on privacy and making sure all of our data is secure, unlike some of these other